We begin in the Middle East, where we tell you that Israel has agreed a ceasefire with Lebanon, clearing the way for an end to a conflict between Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah that has killed thousands of people since it was ignited by the Gaza war last year. Now, the accord was expected to take effect on Wednesday. This followed a meeting of Israel's security cabinet under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened to discuss a ceasefire deal. Israeli approval of the deal will pave the way for a ceasefire declaration by U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron. Despite the diplomatic breakthrough, hostilities raged as Israel dramatically ramped up its campaign of airstrikes in Beirut and other parts of Lebanon. However, there was no indication that a truce in Lebanon would hasten a ceasefire and hostage release deal in devastated Gaza, where Israel is battling Palestinian militant group Hamas. Now, for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afua Hagan. Afua, can you tell us what's the latest on the ceasefire agreement?
Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a statement at 6 p.m., so just about an hour ago, in which he said he had presented the truce, this sort of ceasefire deal, to his cabinet, his war cabinet, which is about 11 people, and they had approved it, and he wasn't going to put it to the general cabinet. And it's about 99% sure that the ceasefire deal will go through, and it's thought that initially the ceasefire will be for 60 days, and Israel is very adamant that they will have a clause in there that if Hezbollah attacks them, then they will be able to attack back as well. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, tonight I brought before the cabinet a plan for ceasefire in Lebanon, and he said, like I said, if Hezbollah tries to attack us, if it arms itself and rebuilds infrastructure near the border, we will attack.
Okay, now, but what will happen next? What do you think will happen next?
And that is the big question, is how soon will this ceasefire come into effect? He is putting it to the cabinet this evening, so it could come into effect this evening, more likely tomorrow or into Thursday. But then it's, what really happens next? Now, residents of that part of the north of Israel have been voicing their fears that if Hezbollah is allowed to withdraw its remaining forces, it will just regroup, rearm, and attack them again at a time of their choosing. So people are reluctant to return back to that part of northern Israel. And how do you prevent that? Well, preventing that is about maybe shoring up the Lebanese army and making sure that they can keep both Israel and Hezbollah at bay. So how do you supercharge that army? Well, they need to be armed. So could that mean that you bring in people involved in the deal? France and the US were very heavily involved in the deal. Will they be responsible for perhaps arming a Lebanese army that can make sure that there's peace in this part of northern Israel and over the border as well? And that's what it's really about. And there is definitely a sense of nervousness in the area that even if they have this sort of fragile peace in place, how long will it take before things flare up again? And that is the real problem, and that's the real question on everybody's lips. Yes, this truce, this ceasefire might come into play in the next 24 to 48 hours, but will it hold?
Afua, Benjamin Netanyahu has actually said in a statement, that Israel remains at war. What could this mean for the war in Gaza? Since we hear that, Lebanon has actually started packing its bags.
Yeah, absolutely. And he made quite clear in that statement that the reason why this ceasefire is happening at this time is because he wants the troops to be able to rest, to be able to regroup, and to focus on the other front, which is Gaza. And also remember that Israel's also had some skirmishes in Syria as well. So there's been other fronts that they have been fighting on. So part of the ceasefire is about regrouping their resources, regrouping their troops and their weaponry, and refocusing actually on Gaza. Netanyahu also said in that speech he's killed about 20,000 terrorists, as he put it. He's kind of saying to us that, look, Gaza is now going to be the focus. And this is where we want to put our resources, and put our troops. So this could be bad news for Gaza, and already a huge humanitarian crisis in that area. But Netanyahu made it quite clear that it's now about focusing the efforts of the IDF and the Israeli army on Gaza. In terms of what it means for a ceasefire deal there, for peace talks, they haven't been ongoing in the past few weeks at all. Perhaps this could be some inspiration for them to restart, but from the sounds of the speech that Netanyahu gave this evening, it sounds like actually he's doubling down on their efforts in Gaza.
All right, well, thank you so much, Afua, for that. Now, earlier, displaced Lebanese were packing to return home, feeling optimistic about a potential ceasefire. Lebanon reported 3 deaths and 26 injuries on Tuesday after Israeli airstrikes targeted a 4-story building housing displaced people in the Nweri area. Now, the attack caused heavy destruction in a densely populated area where people sought shelter. Rola Jaffer, a survivor of the strike, said that they were blown away and the walls fell on them. The strikes come amid a potential ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah after 2 months of intense conflict, which has killed at least 3,799 people in Lebanon since October. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have intensified their bombing of southern Beirut and Hezbollah strongholds since late September, leaving a devastating toll on both sides.
صرنا نفكر نجيب فان نحط اغراضنا واولادنا وندغري نطلع على الضيعه، ما حروح مطرح دغري يعني على بيتي بدي اروح. الناس صاروا يقولوا لا بنروح اول شيء لهون لعند حدا هون ببيروت، يعني بنرجع بنفل على الضيعه، قلت لهم لا دغري حفل انا على الضيعه ما حروح مطرح. ضل هون نجيب فان باخذ اولادي وفل على بيتي.
هذا كله كذب على الشعب. عم يلعبوا على اعصاب العالم هلا، صارت حرب النفسيه هلا. الحرب النفسيه اصعب من حرب الصواريخ.
يعني لنا شهرين بقولوا على بكره وبعد بكره وبعد جمعه، بس لا هي الاخبار امبارح كانت طمنت يعني. بقولوا بكره الصبح بدها توقف، بس اكيد ما فيناش نطلع عند لا حدا يحكي رئيس شيء.
Now we move to North America, where U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened sweeping new tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China on his first day in office. The president-elect who takes office on 20th January next year said he will reduce or introduce a 25% tax on all products entering the country from Canada and Mexico. Posting on his Truth Social platform, he also threatened an additional 10% tariff on goods from China on top of any he might impose as one of his first executive orders. For News Central international correspondent Afua Hagan has more.
President-elect Donald Trump promised massive hikes in tariffs on goods coming from Mexico, Canada and China, starting on the first day of his administration, a policy that could sharply increase costs for American businesses and consumers. The move, Trump said, will be in retaliation for illegal immigration and crime and drugs coming across the border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Trump said America's neighbors can easily solve this long-simmering problem. Similarly, Trump said that China will face a higher tariff on its goods by 10% above any existing tariffs until it prevents the flow of illegal drugs into the United States. The president-elect claimed in the Post that Chinese officials promised him the country would execute drug dealers caught funneling drugs into the United States, but never followed through. Responding to Trump's announcement, Chinese embassy spokesperson Liu Pengyu said his country had been in communication with the US about counter-narcotics operations, and that the idea of China knowingly allowing fentanyl persecutors to flow into the United States runs completely counter to facts and reality. The punishing tariffs, if enacted, could wreak havoc on America's supply chains and industries relying on goods from the country's closest trading partners. Although investors believe the tariffs could ultimately strengthen the dollar, America's financial markets took a hit too. The extraordinary tariffs would raise costs dramatically for Americans for everyday goods that had previously come over the border without any import taxes. That stunning shift could stifle economic growth, especially if inflation-weary consumers spend less in the face of higher costs. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagan.
Meanwhile, Canadians have reacted to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's warning of large new tariffs on trading partners, including Canada, Mexico, and China, set for his January inauguration. Montreal residents have expressed mixed views, with some skeptical of the feasibility of such measures, while others are concerned about their potential impact on Canada's economy. In financial markets, stocks and the dollar showed mixed reactions following Trump's tariff threat, which he linked to efforts to curb the illegal drug trade and immigration. Analysts have described the warning as possible negotiation tactics, but it has created volatility, dampening market optimism. The U.S. dollar rose against Canada's dollar and Mexico's peso, but dropped against the euro, pound, and yen. European and Asian markets have also been affected by the uncertainty.
I don't know if he'll be able to fully do it. We're the biggest trading partner, so I think he hasn't fully thought through the repercussions of it. So I'm kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. Still 2 months.
So you're thinking
it's a threat. He'll try to go through with it, but you know, he might then kind of see that it might not quite work.
Ben,
c'est sûr que ça va probablement affecter l'économie canadienne. C'était déjà une de mes craintes en partant. Fait que, voilà, je ne tombe pas dans la grosse paranoïa, mais je sais que ça ne va pas être nécessairement évident là, pour notre économie. Donc, on va voir ce que ça va donner.
Est-ce que vous pensez que tout sur ce sujet-là?
Absolument pas. Vraiment pas. Non, je ne sais pas qui. Mais je ne sais pas si Poilievre, là, tu sais, mais c'est sûr que Trudeau, avoir déjà son bilan, là, moi, je ne suis pas convaincu par tout.
Est-ce que vous...
In the meantime, the United States has appealed for restraint from Pakistani authorities and thousands of protesters marching on the capital, Islamabad, to call for the release of jailed ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan. Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, urged the demonstrators to maintain peace and abstain from violence, while also urging Pakistani authorities to uphold fundamental freedoms and human rights, as well as Pakistani's laws and constitution, while enforcing law and order.
Demonstrate peacefully and refrain from violence, and at the same time we call on Pakistani authorities to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms and to ensure respect for Pakistan's laws and constitution as they work to maintain law and order.
North America, hundreds of Mexicans have taken to the streets of Mexico City to demand an end to violence against women in a country with a long history of macho culture. Now, the United Nations estimates that about 10 women are killed every day in Mexico, which is led by its first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum. According to UN figures released on Monday, at least 85,000 adults and young women will be intentionally killed worldwide in 2023, an alarming level of deaths that could have been avoided.
El 25 de noviembre es una fecha muy importante para nosotras, para seguir hablando, sensibilizando sobre la importancia de erradicar la violencia de género, incluyendo las maternidades forzadas. Cuando el aborto está criminalizado, las mujeres están obligadas a asumir maternidades no planeadas, no deseadas, pero también a poner en riesgo nuestra salud y nuestras vidas.
El día de hoy, 25 de noviembre, traigo una manta con el rostro de mi madre, que como menciono fue víctima de feminicidio en Ixtapaluca por quien en ese momento era mi pareja sentimental. Seguimos haciendo un llamado a las autoridades, a la gobernadora Delfina, a la presidenta Sheinbaum y al gobierno de Ixtapaluca, que no se permitan influencias políticas ni intereses económicos en un caso como este de feminicidio, al igual que en el de mis otras compañeras que hoy me acompañan.
Still in Mexico, the most populous state, it has decriminalized abortion up to 12 weeks of pregnancy following a 2021 Supreme Court ruling that de facto legalized abortion nationwide. Now, the state, with 17 million residents, has now become the 18th of 32 states to adopt similar measures. On Monday, the Congress of the State of Mexico approved the legislation with 55 votes in favor and 7 against, aligning with the Supreme Court's 2021 ruling that declared laws criminalizing abortion unconstitutional. While pro-demonstrations by pro-decriminalization groups took place in the state capital, Toluca, Human Rights Watch has long advocated for decriminalization, highlighting barriers to abortion services and the criminalization of healthcare workers.
Este día representa un avance para los derechos de las mujeres, de las adolescentes, de las niñas, en cuanto a su salud sexual y reproductiva. Eso representa lo que es un derecho que tenemos las mujeres, que vamos a tener las mexiquenses, muy importante porque es sobre decidir sobre nuestro cuerpo y también que se vea el derecho al aborto en cuanto a salud sexual y reproductiva, como derechos sexuales y reproductivos, no como penalizar a las mujeres que abortan, no como vernos como criminales, sino como una necesidad que tienen las mujeres.
Y querer vender el aborto como una propuesta de beneficio o de derechos humanos es mayor violencia. La vida, el aborto, aprobar el aborto es romper la última frontera en la defensa de los derechos humanos, porque si la vida no es un derecho, no puede haber otro derecho.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, Venezuelan women protest to end gender-based violence. We'll have this and more stories after the short break. Heading to South America, we'll tell you that Venezuelan women have protested in Caracas demanding an end to gender-based violence, particularly against imprisoned women. Women's rights activist Evelyn Pinto Diaz, leading the march, lamented that to be a woman in Venezuela is to have all their rights violated. The protest calls for stronger protection of women's rights and an end to systemic abuse. Participants also highlighted the struggles of incarcerated women who face heightened violence and neglect. The demonstration reflects growing concern over gender-based violence in the country, with activists urging the government to take action to address the widespread issue.
Esta fecha es muy emblemática e importante para el movimiento feminista y para todas las mujeres, ya que pedimos el cese, por ejemplo, de los femicidios. Y en especial en Venezuela, hoy hacemos campaña por la libertad de muchas mujeres que están detenidas por un proceso político.
In the meantime, Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani has emphasized Italy's commitment to respecting international law amid the International Criminal Court's arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. During a bilateral meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at the G7 summit, Tajani affirmed Italy's strong ties with Israel while addressing the ICC's decision. Tajani also expressed optimism for a ceasefire in Lebanon despite complexities and stressed international efforts to end the conflict between Israel and Hamas. He acknowledged difficulties in forming a unified stance on the ICC ruling, but maintained that negotiating with Netanyahu is crucial for achieving peace in the region. Meanwhile, the G7 ministers continue to discuss the situation and are working towards a consensus on the ICC decision.
Also because we are enlarged our We are friends of Israel, but I think we need to respect the international law.
Our countries are standing together, along with other partners, to deal with the ongoing Russian aggression against Ukraine. We're standing together to deal with some of the challenges posed by China. We're standing together in looking to bring a sustainable, lasting peace in the Middle East. We're standing together in looking to what we can do to address the needs and the interests of the global majority countries.
We understand that Ukraine has announced that it cannot fulfill its commitment to destroy around 6 million Soviet-era landmines due to Russia's invasion. A defense official, Yevgeny Kivshik, revealed this at a landmine conference in Cambodia. Yevgeny said the Oslo Action Plan pledge under the anti-personnel mine ban treaty is currently not possible. He accused Russia of carrying out genocidal activities by laying landmines in civilian areas, including cities, farms, and public transport hubs, using artillery, helicopters, rocket systems, and drones. Ukrainian official Alexander Ryabstev stated these actions have endangered 6 million people. Meanwhile, this follows Washington's decision to supply anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine, sparking criticism from human rights groups. Neither the United States nor Russia are signatories to the Anti-Landmine Convention.
Fartyget och kontakt med Kina och framfört att nu ligger alltså ett kinesiskt fartyg som har uppmärksammats på andra sidan, det vill säga i dansk ekonomisk zon, och ligger just nu stilla där. Från svensk sida har vi alltså haft kontakt med fartyget och kontakt med Kina och framfört att vi vill att fartyget rör sig mot svenskt vatten. Vi har framfört den ståndpunkten och den synpunkten. Här ligger ingen anklagelse om någonting och här ligger ingen del i brottsundersökningen, utan här ligger bara...
Santa Claus has expressed concern over climate change as Finland experiences its hottest summer on record with no snow in sight. From his Lapland hometown of Rovaniemi, he acknowledged that rising temperatures are impacting life in the Arctic, including his reindeer. Now, he emphasized that climate change is real and that it is affecting the reindeer, and he also noted the challenges caused by milder winters and unpredictable weather. Tourists visiting Santa's village have also noticed the absence of snow. In recent weeks, Rovaniemi has experienced rain and temperatures above freezing, with a recent record high of 11.1 Celsius in Utsjoki. Experts, however, said that the Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than other regions, worsening the impact of climate change globally. And that's all on Beyond the Continent. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.